We start the show today felicitating with the people of Akpomo in Osun State for the second anniversary celebration of the Alakpomo Oba Kayode Adenekon Afolabi. Eminent Nigerians, including Governor Buni Oyetola and the Alaafin of Oyo, Oba Lamidi Adeyemi, gathered at the Alakpomo Palace to honor Oba Afolabi as he marked 2 years on the throne. The event witnessed a colloquium on Akpomo in Yoruba history and the launch of a book by Olori Janet Mba Afolabi, The Masters Who Trained Me. That's the name of the book, and it chronicles her career as an accomplished journalist. Let's share some highlights from that event with you.
I am indeed delighted to join the good people of the ancient town of Akpomo for the second coronation anniversary of our highly revered APC, His Royal Majesty Oba Kayode Adenekon Afolabi II, the Alakpomo of Akpomo. I especially felicitate APC on this anniversary. Without any doubt, the last 2 years of APC's reign have brought with it significant achievements in a manner that is leaving notable impact on the people of this kingdom. Our APC deserves commendation for the admirable manner in which he has exercised traditional leadership since assuming the throne. The aims of this, I imagine, in the improved socio-economic development of Akpomo and the peaceful coexistence amongst his people. I note particularly how APC has continued to deploy his rich experience and network for the service of not only Akpomo but also our state and humanity in general.
What I have here about to present to you is a piece of work done by Olori Janet Afolabi. She would not like to be called a veteran journalist. I'll call her a famous journalist, an award-winning journalist, who in her own career won awards locally, all the famous awards she picked them, be it Diamond Award and all of that, and even was a Continental Award winner, the CNN Award for Media Excellence. Olori Afolabi set out to actually acknowledge how she came about what she became. And she thought the best way to do this was to remember those people. There is a book of tribute, of acknowledgement, of excellence, of the work of the most famous player, Dan Agbese, Yakubu Muhammad, Soki Akiniade. Soki Akiniade is the one they call the general, not Alani Akiniade, the general we all know. He is the general in journalism profession. And then Mr. Igebo plus Nari Babarisa. These were the mentors of Olori Janet Afolabi, who tutored her, who trained her, who guided her, and then she decided that their effort deserved to be documented for posterity, so that not just she who has acknowledged them, but the younger ones coming, and all of us who know that indeed, at one point or the other, there are some masters in journalism who train below them. So it is my pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, to present to you the masters who trained me, but to read and spread it. Thank you so much.
Olori is a very, very special person, because there is no news story that you want. She has the capacity to get that news for you. And that was what was very important when we were at Newswatch.
Well, congratulations to Oba and Olori Afolabi there. Beginning with, this really exhilarating report that we just saw. What do you pick from this event, especially when you look at, how Olori Afolabi, how far she's come, and now at this stage she's not forgetting her journalistic roots?
Yeah. Olori Janet Afolabi, of course, is one of us. She's a member of the journalist Vanguard family. But at the time, she was the only female in our midst.
Indeed.
The last 2 years of Oba Kayode Afolabi's reign has really taught me that it's not really how far, but how well. Because those who know Yoruba history will tell you that Akom is one of the oldest settlements in Yoruba land, older than most of the modern cities that we have around now. And it takes a man of courage and a wife of substance to do what he has achieved in Akom the last 2 years. In fact, I was telling the Olori that I thought that Kabiyesi has been a king for about 10 years, based on the amount of time he has brought in dignitaries to Akom for one project or the other. I wish Kabiyesi and Olori well.
Wale Adeoye, your thoughts on this?
Well, I think it's quite impressive that his book, brings back nostalgia about the history of Nigerian media. When you are talking about the godfathers of magazine journalism, Newswatch, Tell Magazine, who unfortunately are no longer around, but produce some of the finest media practitioners, people like Dan Agbese, Dele Giwa, Yakub Mohammed, Dari Babarinsa. These were generals, in the media industry. And I think it's a very good thing that she was able to document how, her experiences, what she passed through, and how she was groomed to be a world-acclaimed media practitioners. And I think it's also impressive that instead of coming to Lagos or Ibadan to launch this book, she decided to take it back home. That means that it's not just, when you are launching, it's not just about Abuja. Those communities are also historic, sites that people need to visit.
Absolutely.
So, and I'm impressed by the number of, the caliber of dignitaries that attended the event. So I congratulate her, and I wish her, good luck.
Absolutely. We indeed wish them good luck indeed, and congratulations. In order, of course, I did say at the beginning of the program that BKO would be joining, albeit virtually. BKO, it's good to see you. So the masters who trained me, a book by Olori Janet Afolabi, what for you is the significance?
Yes, I'm happy that she seized the opportunity to show appreciation to people who groomed her and turned her to the excellent journalist that she had become. She not only was very good at writing cover stories, for a woman to excel, not just at Tell, but at Newswatch, not just at Newswatch, but at Tell. That should tell you the quality of our Olori. And over the years, she has not lost a capacity for qualitative engagement and qualitative analysis, because we got her to join us on Journalist Hangouts, and for years she was one of the favorite analysts to our viewers. So, but we lost her to the fact that her husband became a traditional ruler of the ancient city of Akom. So we can no longer have her analyze issues the way we used to. But we are happy that she's making an impact in terms of empowerment in that ancient town. And her husband is also giving people the feeling of what it looks like to have a modern traditional ruler. Akom has not been the same since the Kabiyesi and Olori Janet Afolabi descended on the scene, and we can only continue to pray for them, and God will give them many more years to continue to impact positively on our people.
Indeed, our best wishes to the Oba and Olori, and indeed the good people of Akpomo Kingdom. Beginning with politics, where it has been said that you never say never because things can turn pretty bad or good in a short while. The leadership tussle within the ruling All Progressives Congress, that's the APC, took a new twist when it was reported that President Muhammadu Buhari ordered the removal of the chairman of the Caretaker and Extraordinary Convention Planning Committee, Governor Buni. Now, Governor Buni has been replaced with Governor of Niger State, Sani Bello. Amidst the controversy surrounding Mr. Buni's removal, Governor Bello and some chieftains stormed the party secretariat in Abuja for a closed-door meeting, and he emerged later, told newsmen that there is no cause for alarm, and the March the 26th National Convention date stands. Let's hear more from him.
Party chairman, they took their oath of office, and we discussed the progress made so far on what needs to be done next so that we achieve March 26th date for convention. That's all.
Sir, in what capacity did you make this move, sir?
Acting chairman. I've been acting for a while as the chairman.
Okay, sir, can you confirm to us the news that you have been appointed as an acting chairman, taking over from Governor Buni?
He said news. He said news.
Yeah, but what do you hear for the horse's mouth and you are the horse?
Governor Sani Bello there affirming, well, briefly though, that he indeed has taken over as the chairman of the Caretaker and Extraordinary Convention Planning Committee of the APC. GKB, what do you make of this latest development? Does it help, resolve issues of crisis within the ruling party?
Well, the original reason why the Buni committee was set up was basically because the party was going through some crisis. And they were given 6 months, essentially, to solve this problem, make sure everybody is on the same page, and then have a convention. That's why they were given 6 months to do that. It's been 2 years. And they keep asking for more time to do whatever God knows. So this is just another step in what I think will be the final resolution of what APC will look like in the next few weeks. I'm glad that he said they are still going to do the convention, because that to me is fundamental to the survival of the party as a party in power.
All right, but while I do you share similar views?
Yes, I think its removal is an indication that there is a deep-seated acrimony within the party, even though we are trying to gloss over it. Its removal is sudden and not democratically removed. It was also not democratically elected.
Yeah.
Because who are the people that took the decision that it should be removed? Was it the National Working Committee? Was it the governors? Was there a voting process? So we just had, more or less like a democratic, turnover of the table, like a coup. So I think it's more or less like either he has failed to meet the aspiration of those who installed him, or along the line, he defined his own course. Or, those who installed him feel that they have, exhausted his potentials and they need, they needed another person to achieve their aim. So it confirms the fact that there is a small group of people in APC that is calling the shot. And that runs contrary to the principles of democracy, party, democracy. And I hope this will not affect the overall outcome of the March 26th, because he was not removed by the party anyway, just by a clique of people, very powerful people. And I hope that, at the end of that convention, there are doubts that, APC will likely produce a candidate that is democratically elected and that is accepted to the generality of the members of the party.
BK, what's it like for you when you look at the manner in which Governor Buni was removed as the caretaker chairman of the party. How much of a concern is this for you as, the order, so to speak, purportedly emanated from President Buhari, who is now no more in the country, at least, for a short while?
Well, I don't know whether indeed President Buhari gave the directive that Buni should be replaced.
Carry on, BKO.
I can hear you.
Yes, carry on.
I do know that.
Right.
I do know that for 2 nights by the APC governors with some members of the caretaker committee, at least 8 members of the caretaker committee were already up in arms against Buni because they felt that he and the secretary had become too powerful. So, some point the governors decided that, look, let us look at the convention, the election committee for the election. That election committee for the election has has more than 1,800 members. Some of the governors complained that their own nominees were not listed on the election committee, whereas the secretary of the party was said to have more than 200 persons that he contributed. There is no way by which we can verify all of these things, that an individual, for example, will have up to more than 200 persons listed on the election committee. So within the party, there is this, not just the contestation for power, but serious lack of trust between the power people within the party. It has reached a point that they could no longer trust one another. So Buni was invited to their meeting, the meeting between some governors and the 8 members of the caretaker committee who were against Buni and had demanded that he should resign. He didn't attend, but he sent the secretary of the caretaker committee to represent him. The secretary also stayed away, arguing that that meeting was called to plan a coup against the Buni leadership. So he spoke to them, they got through to him on phone, and he said he was not going to have anything to do with the meeting because it was meant to plan a coup against the leadership of the party. So where you have a caretaker committee and some people felt that they were being marginalized, they were not carried along, these were the people who reached out to governors and told the governors that, look, the zonal congress, the committee to organize the zonal congress was being unnecessarily overbloated, and that people who are likely to come up with reports contradicting each other's reports were being brought into the equation. You understand that in some states we have two factions. So where you get where you fail to pick one person, you pick 2 persons, and both of them, you bring both of them into the equation, they are not likely to see things the same way. So at that point, they were already thinking that, look, this could put even the convention itself in jeopardy, where nominees of governors were not listed, and an individual will have more than 200 persons will contribute more than 200 persons to the same election planning committee. This was the issue that got them to meet over 2 nights, including yesterday. So I had been hearing that this sort of decision will be taken, since last night. So I'm not surprised that this is what eventually happened today. But whether what has been done is legal, we really cannot say, because the convention committee itself was a product of handpicking on the part of the president and some of the people close to him. So, and the convention committee members had been arguing that, look, we were all inaugurated at the same time, we have the same power. So they felt that, look, the best thing to do was simply to kick the chairman out. One thing crucially happened that we need to also talk about. The first thing that Governor Bello did was simply to go and inaugurate those state chairmen. That's to send a clear message to people that Governor Bello was trying to address the anger that was already brewing, but the governor, the Mayor Mala Buni, refused to inaugurate them. Some people have argued that he refused to inaugurate them because he didn't want to give them powers.
Well, BK, let me put you on hold. Let's get more reactions from the studio about this latest development in the APC. GKB, like I said earlier, the president is not in the country at the moment, and yet there are some reactions as to the basis for Mayor Mala Buni's removal. Well, reportedly, on the orders of the president, BK was explaining on what could have been the rationale, and if you look at the reaction so far, some have justified the removal of Mr. Mayor Mala Buni. Some have said that there were some allegations against him, alleging further that he wasn't among, or he was among an influential group of people who didn't even want the National Congress to hold in the first place.
Well, you have to look at it from two angles, really. You have to look at it from the legal viewpoint, that the committee itself was a product of necessity. It didn't follow any due process. Nothing was done according to party rules. In fact, there are members of the National Working Committee who had refused to do anything with the party since that thing was dissolved. And don't forget the case of Akeredolu, where they said that certain people cannot sign certain things because they are not recognized by law. Despite all these red signs, the Buni administration or Caretaker Committee have been carrying on as if they have all the powers in the world. The dangers were there, that for the party to remain relevant and to be able to compete, you must hold a national convention. But it's obvious by what happened today that there are some forces within the party who do not want the democratically elected executives to come into office. Either they think they will dilute their powers, or they have an agenda down the line to ensure that whatever they've done will be thrown away. So today, what Mr. Bello has done is basically to empower the state branches of the party. And that, of course, is the fundamental backbone of the political party as we know it. Whether the president is aware of this decision or not, it will be very difficult for the party to go back and recognize the state chairman. It's not going to happen. So right now, whatever happens to this particular contraption, as it were, what has happened is that those who are democratically elected to run the party at state level have now been mandated to do their job.
All right, BKO, I'll allow you, to finish your, to wrap up your thoughts now before we move on to other topics.
Let me quickly correct something that I said earlier.
Right.
It wasn't the chairman of the party in the states that were inaugurated today. The election convention subcommittee members were the people inaugurated by the governor of Bauchi State. I want to believe that there are many people who are convinced that the governor of Yobe State has done a good job for the party. And that it is not the best thing to do, to treat him in the way that has been treated. One of his friends had what was happening during the meeting, and he had to race to one of his friends, who is a governor, he had to race to the place. So at the end of the day, perhaps some of the comments that the governor of Benue, Niger State made was part of the attempt to give Mala Buni something that looks like a soft landing, that is befitting of someone who had worked hard for the party, instead of kicking him out as chairman in disgrace. So you can see a reluctance on the part of the the acting chairman, because when he was asked, he said, I'm acting chairman. A reluctance on his part to say, oh, I've stepped into the position of somebody who was removed. So
right.
he actually said that he's acting because he's not around, because he's out of Nigeria. So we will still see a lot of intrigues as we move towards the election. But basically, the constitution of the election planning committee was what led to crisis, and one of the moves the governors have made to address this crisis is to take the decision that majority of them have taken after meeting with 8 members of the caretaker committee. So we don't know what will happen in the next few days, but we just keep our fingers crossed.
Indeed.
As the battle for power within the APC goes on and on.
Right. While I do your final words from you, we've run out of time, but let's accommodate
it's all about
few seconds.
2023.
Right.
And he spent more than 1 year there now, and I believe he has also built some forces. If he decides to fight back, it's not going to be, because there are better ways to have removed him instead of just doing the kind of open announcement like that. And I pray they'll be able to resolve the internal crisis without leading to greater problems.
All right, gentlemen, let's put this discussion on hold. It's commonly said that trust once lost can never be regained, and trust issues are still constituting a stumbling block to resolution efforts between striking university lecturers and the federal government. So in response to claims by the Minister of Labour and Employment, Dr. Chris Ngige, that the federal government lacks funds to meet its obligations and the need for another agreement, the national president of the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASUU, Professor Emmanuel Osodeke, says the one signed in 2009 must be fulfilled. ASUU also advised the federal government to either fund universities or shut them down. GKB, the question has been asked as what is there to renegotiate? So today, earlier today, the federal government inaugurated what it calls the renegotiation committee, and we've seen how the ASUU side, snubbed that committee. Bringing us back to the initial question I asked, what is there to renegotiate, really?
That's the question 200 million Nigerians are asking, really, because the government is a continuum, and we expect that once an agreement is reached, the best person you can do an agreement with should be the governor or the government of the state or the federation, as the case may be. To renegotiate means that at a point in time, they've agreed to do a certain percentage of what was agreed upon. Obviously, it was not enough to sway the lecturers back to class. And this, of course, is the fundamental problem we face as a nation. Because when agreement is reached, if it is done in good faith, there will be attempts to meet at least 50%, if not more, of that agreement before you now come for renegotiation. As of today, I don't think the federal government has done enough to warrant that they are not asking for renegotiation. Like I said, if they've done 50-60% of what they agreed to, and then circumstances now force them to come back to the negotiation table, fine, fantastic. But it seems that they are using this as a ploy to just delay implementing anything in the long run. And that, to me, if true, would be a shame indeed.
Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree with him, because this problem has been ongoing for 13 years, since 2009. And when we are talking about renegotiation, it is a problem associated with the fact that for 13 years we have not done, the federal government has not done what it's supposed to have done. If we have resolved this problem years back, that we don't need to be talking about renegotiation, because once you have an MOU, you must have critical thinking before you sign. So when 13 years after, you are not talking about renegotiation, and the fundamental issues raised, like funding of public universities, has not been addressed. And they are talking about the university transparency accountability solution. They are talking about earned academic allowances. These fundamental issues are yet to be resolved. And I think the ASUU president said that they are ready to talk about issues that are negotiable. But there are certain fundamental issues that you can't just compromise on that. For instance, providing funds. The federal government is saying that there are no funds, but you could see the federal government spending money. You are subsidizing discos, you are buying meters for them, you are giving money to even other countries, for so many other things.
You are building,
infrastructure, you are building railways, very good, but education is far more important than even building infrastructure, because who are those people that are going to manage what we are building? So what they are saying is that from what they have seen, the government cannot justify the fact that the government has no funds to provide money for public education. So I think if you look at it, the ASUU is correct. So if after 13 years, we're not talking about renegotiation, and I think the federal government is a little bit pompous. The language, the federal government uses all the time, more or less like bullying ASUU. It doesn't help, for mutual understanding, So I think the options given by ASUU was born out of frustration that, okay, if you don't want to fund these schools, it's better you close them. But I think there are other options. The University of Ife, ABU, the Iranian universities were taken away from regions by the federal government in 1976. Ife, for instance, was owned by Western region, and it was well managed. ABU was owned by Eastern region, the same thing with UNN by Eastern region, and they were well managed until the federal government in 1976 just took over this structure, and now you cannot manage them. They are diminishing in terms of infrastructure, in terms of quality. So if the federal government cannot manage the first generation universities, they could be handed over to the regions. And then, when you are talking about funding, you give the money to the regions and let them manage those universities. Because if you go to these universities, you will cry. Go to UNN, go to Ife, go to ABU. Compare with, the standard that were maintained, in these institutions in the 80s and 70s. So it's quite unfortunate. If you don't fund our universities, we are going to pay dearly for it. The consequences are grave. So education is the pilot of development. And I think we have to support ASUU. It's not about the individuals in ASUU. It's about the future of our youth. It's about the future of the country. So I think I support them, and I hope the government will listen to them, and do the right thing.
BKO, how much are you also in support of ASUU's stance? Of course, it's not exactly surprising, but then again, if you look at the composition of this renegotiation committee said to be led by top university dons, where do you stand?
Extremely difficult for it to be trusted. When you go into negotiations with people and you show no faith to honor your word, people are never going to take you seriously. They are never going to take your word seriously. In December 2020, the memorandum of action was signed, enabling ASUU to suspend its strike, not call it off. But all of the issues that were agreed upon that got ASUU to end the strike at that time, or suspend the strike, government has refused to fulfill. There was this decision to look at to renegotiate the wages of academic staff of our universities. That committee set up by the government was led by Professor Musalin Jibril, who used to head the NUC. Musalin Jibril turned in his report a long time ago. What have we seen? Government has refused to look at the report that Musalin Jibril turned in with a view to implementing his recommendations. Now, if you set up a committee by yourself, you chose Musalin Jibril to head that committee. The minimum irreducible measure that you can take is to implement
the recommendations of the committee that you set up by yourself without a gun put to your neck. But that has not been done. ASUU members have been on the same salary for 13 years. As I've said before, how many of us will agree to earn the same salary for 13 years? People can badmouth them, call them names, say all kinds of things. But how many of us have been on the same salary for 13 years amidst inflation, inflationary trend? So these are the big issues. And government knows that as long as it does not do something about agreements that it reached with ASUU, ASUU will never trust it. There are just two demands they are making now. Just two demands. Implement UTAS. These lecturers came together, designed an alternative to IPPIS. It cost more than 30 million to put it together. Government agencies looked at UTAS and passed it fit. Yet government has refused to let UTAS replace IPPIS. Everyone knows that IPPIS is inflexible. It is not made for the university system.
All right. BKO, I'll get back to you. I hope we have time indeed, to get final thoughts from your end. But GKB, I want to also take you up on the latest options proffered by ASUU to the federal government: fund the universities or shut them down. Which of these two options are indeed viable? If government is truly, saying that there are not the needed funds with which to sustain present university structure, especially the public universities, should they shut them down or hand them over?
I'm sure you know that since 2009, nothing less than 10 universities have been sanctioned for federal universities, for some states without federal universities in the last 12 years. Don't forget, the same period of time, military universities have gone up, I think, about 4. With the same system that will pay them. So that means government somewhere decided that they have enough money to get the new universities up and running. But they are not willing to pay for agreements that they willingly entered into. That does not show that the government is ready to run universities. Like Wale said, maybe it's time to return the legacy universities, talk about the 4 sets, return them to the regions. Let them take over their own assets. Then the one you created, give them back to the states. It's not really that important for you to run university if you cannot afford to do it. I understand the fundamental dynamics that led to the grabbing, if I can use that word, of these universities. Okay. But we are talking about almost 50 years later. And those things have been met. Let's return to basics. Those who can run this university, let them run it. Stop pretending you can run when one of your legs is crippled. Indeed,
these are really, worrisome cycles.
Yeah.
And
because don't forget, Professor Olejeka said a few years ago that there's a need for an emergency in the education sector.
Of emergency.
Let's shut down the entire university system and then replan it. If that's going to solve the problem.
All right, we'll see how far-reaching, all these developments would go, especially in resuscitating our educational system. The late reggae icon Bob Marley admonished us in one of his hit songs, Redemption Song, that none but ourselves can free our minds. The indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, has now come to the realization that no one but itself can stop the sit-at-home order, causing people in the southeast untold hardship. The group says it will confront enforcers of the non-existent sit-at-home order in the region. IPOB stressed that politicians now recruit criminals to attack innocent citizens in the name of enforcing Monday's stay-at-home directive in the region. Wale Adoye, what do you make of this position of IPOB? Is it something that you would call a late in arrival directive? When you look at the havoc that has been caused already, how do you weigh this position?
Well, one thing I would like to say generally is that any political struggle at all is like science. You know, you need to weigh every decision. You need to look at the short term, the long term, and the medium term. When the idea of sit at home was introduced, I think there was no critical thinking about the broad implications of that decision. I was involved in the June 12, the annulment campaign. We used to meet in Dr. Becker and Sokuti's house, and we introduced sit at home at that time. For 7 days, people were asked to stay at home. It was successful to a large extent, at least in many parts of Southwest. But after the first week, to continue was a problem because there was fatigue setting, and then we had to think of what other creative means, because we didn't want to go out demonstrating so that we'll be shut down. But after 1 week, then we had it again, then we had to stop it and devise other means to assess, and then we started to do pamphlets going from one rural communities to the other. We could not sustain it because there was public fatigue. In this case, when IPOB came with this idea of sit at home, I think they did not look at the fact that there may be a third force that will hijack the process. And that is exactly what seems to have happened. Now, some people just come up and say, okay, we're going to enforce sit at home, and they start attacking people, claiming to be IPOB. If IPOB now say, okay, we want to deal with those people, are there not going to be another third force that will emerge and be attacking to say they are dealing with those that are enforcing sit at home? At the end of the day, you may end up having intra-tribal crisis within IPOB. So I think it's a very dangerous situation because all sorts of people can come out and say, okay, we want to enforce it. They are not even IPOB members. And they come with guns, with violence and all that. And then people will say, okay, it's IPOB that's enforcing, asking people that they should not obey. Whereas they are not IPOB members. So, a lot of critical thinking needs to be put into any political campaign. And I think the process of sit at home has, it has been hijacked, it has assumed a life of its own, and people are just using it for their own interest. Politicians have hijacked it. And I think it is time for IPOB to even say, okay, we want to cancel this thing, we want to go back. If not, third force will hijack this process and they will use it to destabilize and cause a lot of crisis in the Southeast.
GKB, for you, what would be the implications, or what are the implications of IPOB's, quote and unquote, the enforcement of what it called those who are imposing sit at home on residents in the Southeast?
I think the challenge, to me personally, is what the elected governors are doing in that zone when it comes to securing lives and property, which is the first job that they signed up for. And that it now require IPOB to come and clean the mess they created, simply because it seems there's a vacuum in leadership in that zone. Now, the things have reached two levels. One is that either they are doing it in the name of IPOB or doing it against IPOB. What this announcement will lead to is the fact that there will now be street gangs hiding under the guise that they are stopping the government, or under the guise that they are stopping IPOB from disturbing the government, which to me has more danger in the lives of the people of the Southeast than anything I can foresee. That's why I keep asking the question, where are the governors? Because at this level of our development, with the constitution that we operate, this should not be happening. It's one thing to say kidnapping and all that, but people are saying blatantly you cannot go about your legitimate duty on a Monday, and the governors will do nothing. And that to me is the danger that we are facing. Because people are obeying the rules because they don't want to die. You understand? They don't want to go out and be killed. Because nobody's protecting them. There are no structures to protect them when they go out that can safely assure them that they'll come back alive. That is the fundamental element in this lacuna. Something must be done by the governors, either physically or through persuasion, whatever they can do, to ensure that people who want to go out on Mondays are free to do so. These counter accusations will not abode well for anybody. I can see a lot of bloodletting in the future, and it's unfortunate. We have people who are elected to ensure things did not generate to this level. But here we are.
And BKO, if you also look at it that, okay, IPOB has even added that there will be instances where it will impose its own idea of sit at home, and these are the days when its leader Nnamdi Kanu resumes hearing for his treasonable felony charges leveled against him by the government, which also, raises the question, like GKB said, as to the legitimacy of IPOB, indeed, to be making orders like this, whether it wants to enforce against those who are enforcing the sit-at-home order, and the back and forth.
And since it was IPOB that instituted the sit-at-home policy in the first place, other people can't be using the name of IPOB to force people to sit at home. IPOB has said that the Monday sit-at-home directive has been revoked, and that people should sit at home only on the days that Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is brought to court. But what we see is a situation in which cultists have taken over. Cultists now take it upon themselves to force people to sit at home on Mondays. So whatever you want to do in the Southeast, if you like your soul, you don't do it on Mondays. And the zone is losing a lot of business. People are diverting their cargoes to other parts of the country to clear. So it's so terrible. You can't be using the name of IPOB to carry out an order that the IPOB has since revoked. So IPOB knows now that it already has a bad name over this matter, and efforts were made in the past by Igbo leaders to get IPOB to revoke the sit-at-home, especially on Mondays, and limit it to days when Kanu will be brought to court. But what we have now is a situation in which if Kanu appears in court for 2 straight days, it means in the Southeast, people will go to work for 3 days out of 5 days. So is that that bad? It's not bad. So I can understand why IPOB, because IPOB had warned that this thing should stop. So it may just degenerate into some form of fisticuffs between the IPOB enforcers and the cultists who are carrying out the sit-at-home order against the directive of IPOB.
BKO, we've run out of time. I'm afraid I'll have to interrupt you, thanking you for braving the odds. I know how network, challenges can hinder smooth conversations, but thankfully we're able to glean so much, insights from you. Brilliant as always. GKB, thank you so much for your wonderful insights as well. And of course, Mr. Wale Adoye, it's good to always, share insights with you and experiences with you on the program. That's our 7 on Journalist Hangout today. We thank you all for watching. You can also join us on Sunday from 1:30 to 3:30 p.m. for Journalist Hangout. We are on YouTube at youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. From all of us here, thank you for watching. I am Kemi Foladiemo. Bye for now, and God bless Nigeria.